Okay, thank you. Welcome to this presentation. First of all, thank you to Nathan for the warm introduction, and thank you to SaaSiest for allowing me to be here to share how we were managing growth within Factbird as we're transitioning and growing year over year. Now, I'll take you some of the thoughts for going in this direction and changing our operating model throughout the years. I will share some of the thoughts behind why we needed to do that. I'll take you through the implementation process, and I'll share some of the painful learnings towards the end of this. And if we have time, allowing the clock, I will take some questions towards the end. Now, if you walk into any fast-growing SaaS company in the Nordics, in the world, on any given Tuesday, the symptoms will most likely be remarkably consistent, and they will rarely announce themselves as a major crisis. But you will probably see a leadership team that's still operating business rather than leading it. You still notice that much of the companies are in or within the people's head. You will see that decisions are stuck between functions, accountabilities are blurred, and you'll hear the phrase, well, I thought someone else was managing that. Maybe a little bit too often for your liking. Individually, all of this will be manageable, but if you combine it in a really fast-growing company, something will start to shake. Something is going to get out of order. And it's not because the market has turned, but it's because the organization is starting to outpace its own growth stage. So for us in 22, 23, when we really started to grow, we were in the middle of this startup to scale up phase. We had just spun out of our parent company as an individual company. We were starting to go into new markets and had opened our first US office. We were rebranding ourselves from Blackbird to Factbird. We were hiring in multiple countries. We were improving our products. We were servicing more than 250 enterprise customers at that point in time, all while we were growing in 2 years about 300%. And at that same time, we were preparing to raise another 10 million euros in growth equity, which actually happened here at this event. Oh, didn't know that. Fun fact, there you go. Anyway, so we were starting to see some of the things happening simultaneously. And to a large extent, we were starting to see that we're outpacing the way that we were operating our business. Now we're operating several geographies with several different teams that were not hired at the same period in time. So different go-to-market motion, different languages, different time zones. We were hiring in Denmark, Sweden, US, Germany, UK, Benelux, all at the same time. We're adding people and we're adding teams, and the functions started to operate in isolation. Engineering, sales, marketing, and they were all doing a great thing. They were all going, full speed ahead. Not in the same direction, though. So we had to control that. 300% growth since the independence. 250 enterprise customers covering brands like Novo Nordisk, Danfoss, Grundfos, Bosch. 10 million euros going into the business with a super high ambitions to continue this. So the ambition we had were massive. But we had no sort of operating model how to channel the growth that we were in. We were hiring the leaders, but we were not giving them a language to speak together. We had no shared meeting rhythm. We had no common language for the priorities, for accountabilities, and the structure outside what I would say really good intentions. So we knew that we had to do something before we spiraled. Before we spiraled into either losing control or into total and utter chaos. And so we didn't really choose a framework because we thought that things were broken, but we chose it because we could see that we're about to scale into chaos if we didn't do anything. Despite the revenue was growing, despite the product was strong, and despite that we had really good people and still have really good people. But the cracks were forming, and I guess if you're in scale-ups or fast-growing companies, you can start to feel this, that's a bit of a challenge, right? What used to take 5 minutes across a round table would now take 5 meetings, right? And we needed to do something. So we needed for us We sat down and decided, okay, what do we need? Well, we need a shared language and a single plan that everyone can rally around. From leadership to individual contributors. We don't want people to go around guessing what are the priorities for this given quarter or for this year. We need one plan for everyone. We wanted to run the same meeting rhythms. So the way, the same planning cadence, the same structure in every meeting, regardless of you being in marketing, in leadership, in engineering, on admin. We needed every must-win battles or KPI to have a single owner. Everyone had to have an owner, and everyone had to have a measurable outcome that they were chasing. And most importantly, we needed a safe, structured way where we could surface some of the challenges and the issues that we're experiencing every single day. A forum where we could bring these issues to the table and talk about them and resolve them in a very structured way to get things done. And for us, the decision became a choice and an investment into a framework called EOS. Just raise of hands, how many here are familiar with EOS? Okay. And I'm super glad that people from the team is raising their hand. And I think there was one more maybe doing that. Okay, so what is it? Well, it stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I think the best way I can describe it is that it's a complete practical toolkit for running your business. That's as simple as I can say it. It's not a philosophy. It's not a framework that you need to customize for your business over 6 or 9 months. This is a ready-made operating model. So it's a book, it's a theory, you roll it out, so to speak. And the reason I say one model to rule them all is that I believe it's covering everything. The vision, the people, the data, the processes, your cadence tractions, and the issues you need to manage. And it's doing that within the same cohesive system in one common language. So vision, if I just start with that one, getting everyone on the same plan or the same pace as to where you're going and how to get there. It details the long-term 10-year plan or vision. It details the 3-year objective, the 1-year plan, and every single quarter it details the 90-day plan as well. It's cascaded and it's shared with everyone in the organization. People operates with the right people in the right seat. The right people meaning people that supports the culture we have defined. The right seats means people that passes the test of getting what the job is all about, wanting that job, and being capable in head and time to deliver on that job. If they do not do that, get them out or do something else with them. Data, running the business on a handful meaningful KPIs that is shared around the business. So we have a weekly scorecard where we are tracking 5 to 15 KPIs, put them on the table, and every person have at least one measurable from the top to the bottom that they're protecting and they're accountable for. Issues. Most companies don't lack issues to manage. On the contrary, we all have issues, plenty of issues out there, all the time. Issues is about getting issues surfaced, discussed, and resolved in a structured manner every single week. Every single week, we take the issues to the table and we discuss it on a weekly basis. I'll show you some numbers on how many fucking issues we've solved over the last 12 months. Processes that you follow, or at least you must follow. Define and document the 20% of your core processes that are managing 80% of your business. Document it and make sure that everyone follows it. And then the traction, or the cadence, that's the executional discipline. Making sure that everyone follows the same rhythm. And I'll mention 2 things. The first things are the rocks, or must-win battles. We call them rocks. Major initiatives, priorities for the next 90 days. Every quarter, we detail 3 to 7 rocks as a department, but also as individuals that we commit to resolving. That's the one thing. And then the weekly L10, the same cadence, the same structure for everyone, a weekly meeting where we over 90 minutes are discussing progress on the rocks, to-dos, issues, scorecard, and a bit of headlines, I think. And that's the things that we're doing. We're using 90 as a platform to manage this. Again, a ready-made tool to drive this out. And for a business like us, with the challenges that we faced, this has been really transformational. We've been growing across markets. We've been adding headcounts fast. We've been adding new products to market. And without a shared operating model, I can safely say that would have not gone as good as it has in the past 2 or 3 years. So I highly recommend that you do this. Now, all of a sudden, we feel like one company. Had we not had an operating model, I would argue that we would see that every department would sort of go in different directions. All of a sudden, we wouldn't feel like one company anymore. We would feel like 5 companies under the same roof. So that's what we've experienced. A different way of showing some of the challenges before I show you the results of implementing EOS within Factbird could be visualized this, 2 graphs, complexity and people. When we were 10 people, everyone sat in the same room. Decision was made in consensus. We would discuss a topic, we would look at each other, we'll get the nod, and then we'd move on. Nice, beautiful, effective. 30 people, not possible anymore. The founders could not be involved in every single decision, and we brought in new management, we'd redefined our values, we were being more and more ambitious, complexity was rising. By 50 people, this is where we had the breaking point. This is where we had the awakening that all the new playbooks that we needed to write, the new products we had to ship, the more markets we had to enter, the fresh funding that had just entered into the business, all of that was much bigger than what the organization could manage with the operating methodology that we had. The complexity at that point in time was going virtual. It was increasing significantly, and we were sorting, this is when we called out that we need to do something differently. Not because we were failing, not because we were a broken engine, but because we could just see the stress level in the organization increasing fast, and we could see that people's ability to manage that complexity was running out of control. We're experiencing organizational growth faster than personal growth. And if we did not support that, you can just rip and replace. That's easy, just get 50 new people. Or not, right? So we had to do something. At 70 people, we'd already made the implementation, but complexity was still going up. I mean, this is what we don't talk about when we're sharing successes of the reality, but this is where we were breaking down silos, instructing people to take on this new methodology, implementing the framework. And this is where any change process demands a lot of discipline, but also time. Now we're 90 people, and I would argue that the framework is proven. It's been implemented for coming up to 2 years at this point in time. 2 years from, and I'll show you the implementation process when we started, but it's been fully rolled out in 12 months across the entire organization. We have one operating model. We have strategic clarity from the top to the bottom. Everyone understands where we're going, understand the 3-year plan, the 1-year plan, the 90 objectives, and their individual rocks. We have real accountability, and we have a management cadence that are running smooth. So the complexity, obviously, is still within the business. And I will argue that when we grow and we scale, complexity is always going to be there. But at least now we have a management system to handle the complexity and to lean back on within that. Now, so what does accountability, clarity, and the ability to scale actually look like? These are the results within the last 12 months. 1,050 to-dos completed. In EOS, a to-do is a specific owner-assigned task that you commit to being resolved in 7 days. And you do that to your team. It's not a vague task in a backlog. This is specific. It's time-bound. It's measurable. And you get it done and you report back on it every single week. The fact that we've been doing and completing more than 1,000 of these in the last 12 months means that we have an operating model that is just moving forward. things don't get lost in the corner, fall through chairs, or are hidden in cracks anymore. Everything is surfaced, it's being discussed. 923 rocks completed. Again, the definition of a rock is a priority. A priority for me as an individual, priority for the department, or priority for the organization. 3 to 7 individual rocks identified top down for the organization, for each department, and for each individuals. So we have completed more than 900 of these, and that means we're not just busy. We're super busy managing strategic priorities. Let's get started with individual use of AI. Let's make sure we have a product launch. Let's make sure that this quarter is about completing the new strategy rollout. I mean, 923 of those kind of initiatives completed in the last 12 months. Nearly 2,400 issues surfaced, discussed, and resolved in the last 12 months. Every team, every week, everything brings forward the problems, the issues, or opportunities. And we sit down as a team in the L10, the weekly meetings, and discuss these issues at length, create to-dos, tasks, potentially create, for the next quarter, a rock to support any of the issues. And if you don't discuss these issues, there is a potential, because the issues are comfortable, and I'll get to that in just as one of the learnings, but the issues are uncomfortable. And if you don't discuss it, there's a real opportunity that will fester, and it'll just become bigger, and it'll be more difficult to manage. All of this we did while we were growing, and what we needed to do, right, which was to grow and create shareholder values. We've been growing 65% in the last year. We've been growing 65% every year since the independence. So this is not just maintenance mode for us. This is scaling up the organization. We've onboarded 43 people alone last year, and that requires that you have a management system where you can handle that complexity. So now EOS is giving us, every new hire a clear seat, a clear expectations, and a cadence model, a traction model that they fall into on the first day at the job. And on top of this, we have been able to manage the pivot from a single product to a platform and change our entire commercial model while we're still driving the business. So I will say that EOS, when that has given us the ability to scale, I really mean it. I don't see that as just a theoretical framework or philosophy they bring out, and then you'll see how that goes. This is really at the foundation of how we drive our business, and that's part of why we've had the transformation that we're seeing. Okay, on the implementation process, and these slides will be shared, so don't worry about it. Don't have to write it down. Honestly, it took us 9 to 12 months to roll this out in full. We had 50% of a full-time employee dedicated to this project. You can go consultancy way as well. We decided to do it in-house, invest into a strategy and execution professional that was helping us complete this. So this is about system setup, communication preparation, support. We chopped the implementation into 4 different stages or phases. Stage number 1 was the leadership alignment. Everyone was instructed to read the book, understand the theory. We prepared the systems, we prepared the communication, and we slowly got familiar with what is this. Stage number 2, that was the operationalization. Starting with ourselves first, implementing the cadence and the framework, setting the rocks for this first time. Over a quarter, just getting comfortable with the new way of discussing elements and driving it forward. Stage number 3, that's the cultural shift. I'm out of time, so I'll speed up. This is really hard, right? The implementation, that's where you meet resistance, and you will meet resistance. People will work against it, and some people they will not be there at the end. That's how it is. So last slide. Before I leave you, I promise to share some learnings as well, because if I've stood here and giving the impression that EOS is the silver bullet to answer all your prayers, then I've done you a huge disservice. So here's 3 learnings. Learning number 1, it's a fantastic executional tool, but if it doesn't tell you what to execute, if you have a weak strategy, EOS is going to amplify it. It's going to expose it. All of a sudden, you'll have fully aligned teams running in the wrong direction. So before implementing a framework that is going to tell you how to operate, make sure you do the hard thinking as to where you're going and why you're going in that direction. Otherwise, you're pretty fucked. Transparency, I mentioned this. This is brutal. The first time one of your colleagues brings an issue to the table about what you've done wrong and how that's impacted, that kind of stinks, right? That feels really bad. The first time someone brings a red number to the table that needs to be discussed, and that number is your fucking number, and you got to make a plan on how to, that doesn't feel nice. But I'll tell you what, 6 months later, if you prevail and work through that, you have built a different level of trust in the organization, and then it's not personal. Then it's just the way that you operate that. And we all want high-performance teams. So this is, a support mechanism for this. Last lesson. The most important one, this goes out to all the founders and the CEOs in the team. You have to commit to this as a CEO. If for one reason or another you skip a level 10 meeting on a given week, the team will notice. If one of your personal rocks for some reason is dropped mid-quarter, the people will notice. If this process doesn't apply to you because you're special, the team will notice, and all of a sudden they will follow your lead. So they will follow you in the good way and in the wrong way. So you have to treat the implementation and the structure as a non-negotiable. It's not for the implementer, it's not for the CEO. This is your framework, and you have to stand by it. So on that happy note, I'm out of time, and I hope I've given some inspiration as to how we run it, and maybe on the system as well. Thank you.
Yes, one. All right, guys, we have time for one question for Søren. Anyone want to fire a good one at him? Any questions? Front row, pressure's on. Front row, pressure's on. Come on, anybody?
Oh,
good. All right, go ahead. Right up here. What was your name? Dave.
What was the hardest part about getting your leadership team on board?
And repeat the question.
What is the hardest time to get the leadership on board? The leadership was not the challenge. So you have some leaderships that already feel they have a cadence and an operating model. I mean, they're using OKR, they're using Agile, they're using Scrum meetings, and all of a sudden you have to stop doing that because it's a new framework. So changing that was probably the hardest part. But everyone understood and acknowledged the challenges we were faced with, and that the fact that we needed to do something.
All right, guys, give it up for Søren. Thank you.
Thanks.